Hey everyone, today we're going to be swatching the Morphe X Avani Gregg for the BEBS palette. This is a pretty palette. It's an artistry palette, so you have eyeshadows, you have pressed glitters, and then you have water activated eyeliners. I think this palette is really freaking pretty. The color story spoke to me. Obviously, I love bright eyeshadows, so this is definitely my vibes. So if you want to see swatches and my thoughts on this palette, just keep watching. Seen swatches of this beautiful palette, let's talk about it. This palette definitely does make me think of like spring and summer vibes. You have tons of fun bright colors. You then also have like some darker colors as well. I'm personally not a big fan of pressed glitters since they aren't eye safe. That being said, I also don't really care for the Morphe pressed glitters very often. Sometimes the formula is great, but I find the two that are in here are very dry and don't pick up very well even with my fingers, so they're not really something I would reach for. If anything, I might use like the lighter shade like on the inner corner or something just to add like a pop, but I wouldn't personally put them like super close to my eyes just because they are like more fine, but I don't know. I'm just not the biggest fan of the formula. There are some imprints in the eyeshadows. Morphe's been doing this every so often with their palettes. I think it's a cute touch. The smiley face is my favorite. I think it's adorable. And then it says Avani. I don't know if I'm saying her name right, honestly. I don't know much about her. She's stunning though. Like, honestly, one of the most beautiful people I've ever seen. And just this color story makes me like want to know her, if that makes sense. As for the water activated eyeliners, super simple. Basically all you have to do is dip a brush into water and then literally they're activated. It's as simple as that. I personally love water activated eyeliner, although since I do have watery eyes, sometimes that can be a little bit tricky since, you know, water obviously activates them so then it moves around. I like the colors that they chose. I like that there's a white, a black, you have like a dark blue, purple, red, pink, orange, and then you have like pastels and like greens. I think that's stunning. This palette retails for $40 Canadian, and I bought it personally off the Morphe Brushes website. I definitely think that the color story itself is very beautiful. It's what drew me to this palette. Honestly, like the reds and oranges almost made me not buy it because obviously I have those shades everywhere. I mean, I probably have most of these shades everywhere, but that being said, I like having all these shades in one palette. I like that you have like a dark red, then you have like a dark orange, then you have a yellow, you have a brighter, more like lighter orange, then you have like a raspberry red, you have one brown, which for me, I prefer having colors, so the fact that there's only one brown makes me really happy. That being said, the pressed glitters definitely throw me off. I don't like them at all. Out of everything in this palette, I like everything, but the pressed glitters are not it for me. I don't like them at all. I don't like the formula. So those are kind of like, I wish they would have just done metallics, because in case you guys haven't noticed, this palette only has one shimmer, the rest are mattes, and then you have two glitters. So I think they could have easily just done a very metallic and sparkly like shade instead of doing glitters, but that's just my personal opinion. I'm sure some people will like the pressed glitters, but for me it just wasn't doing it. Everything else swatched really well. Obviously swatches don't dictate how these will work on the eyes, but typically for me Morphe eyeshadows work well. I actually really like the brown shade they included. It's like a warm Brown, I think, would go really, really good with the yellow. Speaking of the yellow, it was the only shade that was really, like, not a great formula touch-wise. Obviously, like, I haven't used these on my eyes yet, so I can't say how they work on the eyes, but just from swatching them, it's just very dry, and I'm just not a big fan of it. But unfortunately, yellow shades like that tend to be like that, so it's just something that I'm gonna have to work with and see how I can get it to work on my eyes. The one shimmer shade is LMAO, and it is like, if you know what the ColourPop Super Shock formula is like, it's like that. Morphe's been doing stuff like that as well. It's something that I would recommend using your finger with. It's very pretty. It's like a pink with like purple, pink, and blue reflex in it. It's really, really pretty. It's just one of those shades where you're gonna want to like use your finger because it will not pick up well with a brush. But I mean, like I said, it is really pretty, and I definitely think like as an inner corner highlight it'll be stunning, and I think it'll go with a lot of the shades in this palette, so I'm glad they included it. I just wish they would have done a few more shimmer shades. Even if they were like more of that Super Shock formula, I feel like it would have added a bit more to the palette. I actually really love the gray shade in this palette. I'm a sucker for gray eyeshadows, so when I saw this one I knew like this palette was for me. I just love how you have like reds, oranges, yellows, purples, pinks, and then you have greens, blues, and then like gray, a black, a white. Like you kind of have almost everything you need to do different types of looks, and I personally prefer having more mattes than shimmers, so I'm not overly annoyed that there are so many mattes. I just do think that instead of the pressed glitters they could have done some metallics, but again, that's just my personal opinion. I think everything swatched beautifully. I think the colors of everything is very beautiful. Again, Morphe's formula never really bothers me. I've literally had one Morphe palette that I didn't like, and that's it. So, and that was a palette from years ago. So they've really stepped up their game recently. Especially I've really loved their palettes recently, and this is just another one where I'm just obsessed with the color story. I'm obsessed with the formula. Besides the pressed glitters, I'm kind of in love with it. Before I forget to mention, it does come with a very decent sized mirror, which is always fun. Also, the packaging is very pretty. I love the design, the colors. I just think it's a really, really fun palette. I definitely think that this is one of my favorite color stories. I think it definitely screams spring and summer to me, and the fact that they have a white you can lighten shades or a black to darken, I think that this is just fun, and I'm really excited to try this on my eyes. So when I use a water activated eyeliner, these are the types of liner brushes I use, but honestly, these liners are kind of not it. I really tried hard to like them, but in all honesty, they're kind of the worst water activated liners I ever have tried. I mean, look at the green. Look at how crumbly and chunky that is. And they're just like, they're the strangest formula, because I've never had water activated liners be this bad. Usually it's simple. You dip your brush in water, you dip your brush into the liner, and then, you know, it works from there. You can choose how intense you want it, how watery, how non-watery you want it, etc. But these ones, like, for one, they suck up the water instantly, which typically isn't bad, but this like made it so like they're just so dry that they sucked up the water and didn't even like disperse any color. Literally, I would put my brush in and then literally just chunks would start flying out even if I used a lot of water. So that just goes to show how dry they are. And then also, the pigmentation isn't good. I mean, all of these were layered multiple times. The only one that was slightly good was the orange. The orange is fine, but the rest of them, I'm just not impressed at all. I mean, you guys can see how bad they were. I've tried a ton of water activated eyeliners, and this formula is just the worst I've ever tried, which is sad because I don't like being negative about stuff, but if I pay money for 20 eyeshadows and liners, I want the liners to be good, and honestly at this rate these liners suck really bad. Like, I tried really hard to like them. I literally tried every shade, and I just don't like the formula at all. I think that this is the worst water activated liner formula I've ever seen. Like, they're just so dry and crumbly, and no matter how much water I used, they were still bad. And even if I didn't use as much water, it was still bad. So I don't know. I don't even want to imagine how these would work on the eyes. Like, I don't even want to try them because I don't want to mess up a look just to try these liners, if I'm being completely honest. Like, the colors are fine, but even then, they aren't anything to write home about. So I don't know, I'm really disappointed in the liners. The eyeshadows are fine, but I don't know, you guys, I'm not a big fan of these liners. So ugly. The green is the grossest looking one. It just, oh, it looks so nasty. I don't know, I was really hoping to like them, but I don't. After swatching the water activated liners, I honestly don't know how I feel about this palette. Considering this was $40 Canadian, 20 eyeshadows doesn't necessarily cut it for me. Like, if I'm not gonna end up using any of these, it doesn't really make the palette worth the money, because I'm sure I have these eyeshadows elsewhere. So I don't know, I'm really bummed out that those water activated liners just kind of suck. Like, I tried everything I could think of. I mean, I'm not amazing with water activated liner, but I know what I'm doing. So the fact that it didn't work, even with me trying everything, kind of just goes to show how bad they are. So I don't know, that definitely like dampened my thoughts on this palette. At first I was like, yeah, I like this palette, but as soon as I swatched these, I knew that that would drastically change how I feel about this palette. If the palette was cut in half and you just had the eyeshadow, sure. Like, if they had like a smaller version where they like did the liners in one palette and this, I would love it. But that being said, it's one full palette. Not getting use out of any of these will kind of make it not worth it. Plus, then you have 2 pressed glitters, so I don't know if that's gonna be worth the $40. Obviously, I still need to try the palette. I think the eyeshadows are gonna perform just fine. They seem like they will. They seem like typical Morphe eyeshadows, but I don't even think I'm gonna bother trying the water activated liners anytime soon. I don't want to mess up a look just to try them. And with how, oh, they also smudge really bad. Like, I barely touched the green and it was just like, hey. Okay, they're real. Yeah, they're crap. Water activated liners should not smudge that easily. Okay, yeah, no. I wouldn't even waste my breath on the water activated liners. I don't like them. Everything else is fine. Maybe I got it dud. I don't know. All I know is I don't like the water activated liners at all. Let me know down below what your favorite eyeshadow in this palette is. Honestly, it's probably a tie between the purple and the gray. Those are my 2 favorite, I think, personally. Let me know down below any videos you'd like to see me do. Go follow my Instagram and TikTok, Makeup by Tasha Uxo. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.